Hi, YouTube. I'm going to play you this man that spoke before Congress. I hope, I don't know if you can see him, but at least you're going to be able to hear him. It's 13 minutes. Here goes.
All right, my name is Mark Robinson. I live.
Oh, no.
That's right here in Greensboro. Lived in Greensboro all my life. I didn't have time to write a fancy speech. I didn't have time to, I didn't have the resource of an English teacher to sit down and write a speech with at school today and be, brought over here to practice or anything. What I really came down here for is this. I've heard a whole lot of people in here talking tonight about this group and that group, and domestic violence and blacks, these minorities and that minority. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen who's never shot anybody, never committed a serious crime, never committed a felony. I've never done anything like that. But it seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous. I don't think Rod Serling could come up with a better script. It does not make any sense. The law-abiding citizens of this community and many communities around this country, we're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happens, because our rights are the ones that are being taken away. That's the reason why I came down here today. Gun show or no gun show, NRA or no NRA. I'm here to stand up for the law-abiding citizens of this community, because I'm going to tell you that what's going to happen. You can take the guns away from us all you want to. You all write a law, I follow the law, I'll bring my guns down here, I'll turn them in. But here's what's going to happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not going to turn their guns in. They're going to hold on to them. And what's going to happen when you have to send the police down there to go take them? The police can barely enforce the law as it is. As what I see, we demonize the police, criminalize and vilify the police, and we make the criminals into victims. And we're talking about restricting guns? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that when the police department's already hamstrung? You're not going to be able to go down here and take these guns from these criminals. So the criminals are going to hold on to their guns. They're still going to have them. They're still going to break in my house, and they're still going to shoot me with them. And guess who's going to be the one that suffers? It's going to be me. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, it is not going to happen without a fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean shots fired. I don't mean fists thrown. I mean, I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city. And I am the majority. The majority of the people in this city are law-abiding, and they follow the law, and they want their constitutional right to be able to bear arms. They want to be able to go to the gun show and buy a hunting rifle or a sport rifle. There are no military-grade weapons sold at the gun show. An AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon. Anybody would go into combat with an AR-15 is a fool. It's a semi-automatic 22 rifle. You'd be killed in 15 minutes in combat with that thing. So we need to dispel all these myths, and we need to drop all this division that we got going on here. Because the bottom line is, when that Second Amendment was written, whether the framers liked it or not, they wrote it for everybody. And I am everybody. And the law-abiding citizens of this city are everybody. And we want our rights, and we want to keep our rights. And by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
I'm from Ohio. Why do we have guns? Why do we have the Second Amendment? Is it to hunt? Sure. Self-defense? That's even more important. The fact is, you read the founders, Federalist 46, James Madison, contrasts this with the tyrannical governments of Europe who are, quote, afraid to trust the people with arms. Joseph Story, in his commentaries on the Constitution in 1833, quote, the right of the citizens to keep and bear arms has justly been considered as the palladium of the liberties of a republic, since it offers a strong moral check against the usurpation and arbitrary power of rulers. and will generally, even if these were successful in the first instance, enable the people to resist and triumph over them. We have a Second Amendment because we understand in this country that there are some things, inalienable rights, that you cannot justly take away from a free and equal human being. Tyrants disarm the people they intend to oppress. Those are the facts. Jewish people in Germany were prohibited from owning arms. 13 million Jews were exterminated by the Nazis. The Soviets instituted gun control and millions were killed. 20 million dissidents were rounded up and exterminated. Mao disarmed the Chinese people. 20 million dissidents were exterminated. In Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge were able to take advantage of the fact that limited gun ownership to just hunters and killed 1.5 million to 3 million Cambodians. Turkey disarmed Armenians and 1.5 million Armenians were killed in the Armenian genocide. The South disarmed slaves and actively fought against their army. And then in the 20th century, armed Black Army veterans, for example, in Louisiana, were able to defend against the KKK. Even fact-checking organization Snopes said, quote, "We find it reasonable to conclude that gun confiscations facilitated by laws requiring the registration and licensing of firearms played a crucial role in the carrying out of 20th century genocides." This is not fiction. This is in our lifetime. This is in our grandparents' lifetime. This is in our recent history. This is why the Second Amendment matters. It's not trivial. It's not something you just brush aside. This is the foundation of liberty. It's who we are. But in order to sell a lie to the American people, that the government will protect them from all manners of evil, while defunding the police, leaving our borders wide open, I'm glad my colleagues can suddenly find Uvalde on a map, while allowing dangerous cartels operating hundreds of miles into Texas, allowing fentanyl to pour into our communities and kill tens of thousands of children. The very children my colleagues say they wish to protect. In order to do this, Democrats in this body are willing to take away a citizen's God-given right, yes, God-given right that was mocked earlier, to protect himself or herself or her family or his family from harm. The very harm they foster by appeasing lawlessness. And importantly, from the very tyranny being applied to them to deny that right. That is what is at stake. This bill that gets brushed aside raised the age limit. Well, there are constitutional questions to that in the Fourth Circuit, Ninth Circuit, and other circuits. The second title on straw purchases, the very straw purchases Democrat DAs don't even want to really prosecute, would prohibit a law-abiding citizen from giving a gun to a friend as a gift. Safe storage would make it unlawful for me to have the 22 and the 20 gauge propped up by my door right now in Texas to kill coyotes and snakes. It would make it unlawful. This will not do any good. It will harm Americans, and it undermines our foundational liberties that is crucial for a free state. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman from New York.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 1 minute to this Royce recognition.
Strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized.
As a gentlelady on the other side of the aisle knows, I too live in Texas. Raised my son, daughter to respect firearms. We shoot them frequently on our property. We shoot semi-automatic weapons on my property. I teach my children how to use them safely. I teach them what they're used for, why we have the ability to have firearms. And yes, we use it for hunting. My son shot his first deer.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Briefly.
Yeah, very quickly. What do you use semi-automatic weapons for?
I use semi-automatic weapons to kill hogs. I use semi-automatic weapons for sport and shooting on our property, but I also have semi-automatic weapons, and I'm getting to the point.
Thank you.
Because a semi-automatic weapon is a weapon that you can use for self-defense. It is a semi-automatic weapon that you can use to defend yourself against home invaders, but also, let's be clear, against tyranny. The gentlelady is talking about the Second Amendment in the context of hunting, as if my rights are reduced in the Constitution to a 410 or a single shot or lever action 22, as if that was what was expressly put forth as how we're supposed to be defending ourselves.
Yield again?
Yeah, let me go ahead and finish my time, sir, unless we want to add more time.
Very, very quickly, question.
I need more time. Will the gentleman give me another 30 seconds?
Yes.
Okay, I'll yield.
You said that you could use a semiotic weapon to fight tyranny.
Sure.
You mean you'd use it against American troops?
The very existence of the Second Amendment is designed purposefully to empower the people to be able to resist the force of tyranny used against them to step over their natural rights given to them by God. That is why the Second Amendment exists. That is very specifically why the Second Amendment exists. Let's be very clear about that. Let's rewind the clock a little bit, as I know at least several justices have written in Supreme Court opinions, but about what life looked like in the 19th century and what the government was doing to remove the ability of either slave owners or, importantly, freed blacks, or importantly, whites who even stood up in defense of blacks or against slavery, and the efforts by the South and the efforts by the strong arm of government to remove their ability to have firearms. That is an absolute, undeniable, documented, historic fact in our country. As written by Robert Verbruggen in National Review, and I'm happy to submit this to the record without objection, he writes, the heart of the problem was that in an effort to stave off rebellion and maintain the racial caste structure that had developed under slavery, state and local governments refused to respect freedmen's constitutional rights. Crucial to the South's efforts were gun control laws that applied to blacks and blacks alone. This does not show that, and it goes on further, I'm going to take too longer, where it goes into the South's campaign against black gun ownership, not surprisingly, began long before the Civil War. Two slave rebellions in the 1820s stoked whites' fears, and in response, many legislatures amended their laws prohibiting slaves from carrying firearms to apply the prohibition to free blacks as well. When the government, and he writes further, and I agree with this, when the government has the ability to forbid gun ownership, it has the ability to render groups it dislikes helpless to defend themselves, regardless of whether modern gun control accomplishes its purpose of reducing crime. And for the record, there is no evidence it does. And I agree with that as well. This is so inherent to the very conversation we're having. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle just blithely dismiss due process. A former judge even saying, arguments about due process, you have the opportunity to be heard after. You have the opportunity to be heard after your rights have been taken away. That's the key issue here. We are absolutely destroying the bedrock principle that your rights are given to you by God and that you can't just have to go to the government to ask permission to exercise those rights. And when
would the gentleman yield for a question? Could I ask Mr. Roy a question? Would you yield for a second?
I need to finish up my time. I already have a few seconds left over from the chairman. I'm happy to engage with you in colloquies later. And I would point out that my colleague from Maryland, again, just sort of rolled over the fact that it was very expressed in the Supreme Court's ruling that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with service in a militia. My colleagues like to continually try to connect that to militia service, but we all know that what a militia looked like in 1775 and 1776. I appreciate that the chairman gave me a little extra time.
All right, my name is Mark Robinson. I live.
Okay, I believe that one of the pushes for separation between people in this country and them with their racial bullshit and gender bullshit and all the rest of us, we don't fight. We never have fought until all this bullshit of them wanting to implement their new world government, one world religion, and the rest of their stuff. And they're just looking for an excuse to bring in national police that are part of the United Nations. They're just itching for an excuse. And that's why I believe Trump is going to have his rally at Waco just to incite the downtrodden Christian that I believe was a fake setup and now used and implemented 30 years later just for that reason, just to get people upset again against the whole thing. And that's my belief. So I wanted you to hear what's going on in Congress. And thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you soon. I love you all.